Mike from Riverton. Mike, you are on the line with Senator Lee.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Senator. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Hey, my big concern, especially on the Senate level, is I'm wondering what you specifically are going to do to spearhead the movement to get the Constitution back relevant again and get us in line with those principles, as opposed to the abuse and power and the circumventing of the Constitution that we've seen for the past, seriously, for about 10 years now, if not longer.
Great question, Mike. There's no issue that's more important to me than the U.S. Constitution. Of course, just over 4 years ago, shortly after I was elected to this office, when I was sworn in as a senator, I was required under Article 6 of the Constitution to take an oath to uphold and protect and defend our 227-year-old governing document, a document that has fostered the development of the greatest civilization the world has ever known. This document, and my oath to uphold it, has played a special role in my office and everything I do. And I've made it my mission here to make sure that every speech I give, every vote I cast, is done with the Constitution in mind. This is something that we can't relegate to the courts, and it's a problem that's been created in part because too many here in Washington are inclined to think that the Constitution is something only for the courts to worry about. In fact, you've had in the past members of Congress who will vote for legislation, or presidents who will sign legislation into law that they acknowledge has constitutional defects. And they'll say, for example, well, this has constitutional problems, but we'll let the courts work that out. Well, of course, the courts can't iron out all of the constitutional defects, and in many cases they don't, or they won't. Sometimes they simply refuse. Other times they don't have occasion to bring it up. So that's why I've maintained that every time I see a constitutional problem, I have to identify it, I have to bring it to the attention to my colleagues, and I have to express it not just in the terms of what would the courts do with this, but I need to express it in terms of whether or not it's consistent with the text of our governing document itself and how it was understood by the generation of Americans who put it together and who ratified it. So, for example, when the President of the United States overreached a few months ago in issuing his executive order to grant amnesty to several million Americans without any authority under the U.S. Constitution, without any authority granted by statute, I immediately started calling for Congress to respond by using its power of the purse. This, of course, is the formula identified by James Madison in the Federalist Papers for how we should respond to executive overreach. He explained that Congress controls the power of the purse, and whenever it sees an overreach by the executive, Congress should restrict funds to that program. I've been calling for that, and that's one of the reasons why the House of Representatives passed a bill funding the Department of Homeland Security, but withholding funds for implementing this executive amnesty program. It's one of many examples of where I've declined to say, oh, let's let the courts worry about this, because it has to be dealt with first here in Congress. And you've got my commitment, Mike, that every time something like this happens, I'll bring it up on the floor of the Senate, and I will fight it out. Regardless of whether I'm certain I can win at the outset, these fights need to be fought, and they need to be argued clearly to the American people.